Hello everybody, welcome back. It's been a long time. I hope you're all well. If you are new here, then hi, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Knitting podcast, and this is episode 73. And it's the first one of 2026. So I hope you all had a wonderful festive break and a lovely new year and are sort of settling into January and kind of getting into the swing of the year again after some time off. But yeah, I took a bit of an extended break. I took an extra week off. I just wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't ready to sit down and film last week. And we were kind of just getting back into the swing of getting my daughter back to school. We had some pretty kind of rubbish weather. And yeah, it all just felt a bit busy and I kind of never really got into the headspace of sitting down and filming. But I am back today. So I have quite a lot to catch you all up on because I haven't filmed a podcast since early November because obviously I broke my finger, so I wasn't really knitting a lot and it just didn't seem worth filming a podcast to talk about like one project that I'd made a small amount of progress on. And yeah, then it was Vlogmas, so I didn't film any in December either. So it's been a good old while since I filmed a podcast. So like I say, I have quite a lot to catch you all up on. So yeah, should we just get into it? First of all, actually, I will say my finger is now completely healed. I can use it like normal now. I've got full movement back in it. I don't have to do my physiotherapy exercises anymore. So yeah, that is a positive. At least I now have 10 working fingers again. And I can knit normally, although I am taking more breaks just because it hasn't like... Sometimes it aches a little bit, but I think that's just because I had like 10 weeks where I wasn't really using it very much. So it's kind of just getting back into the swing of being used again. So yeah, with that ability to knit like normal again, I have done a fair amount of knitting over the past couple of weeks. So I have 4 finished objects, 1 almost finished object, and 2 whips to talk to you all about today. So let's just get straight into some finished objects. So the first one I don't actually have with me because my husband has worn them to work, which was bad planning on my part. I should have mentioned that I wanted them for this video, but I completely forgot. But these are his You Silly Goose socks, which were the only knitted gift that I managed to gift to him for Christmas this year. And this is patterned by Stone Knits. It's a colourwork sock pattern with a short row heel and a wedge toe and covered in geese. So I knit up size medium, which is the size that I would usually knit for myself, but me and my husband seem to have like similar width feet. His are slightly wider, but not wide enough to go up a whole size. And I did have to lengthen the foot. So I added an extra chart repeat of the geese. And I also added a little bit of stockinette at the bottom and a contrast stripe just to make them that little bit longer before I then started the toe, so they would fit him nicely. And they do, they fit him really, really well. I didn't do this as like a completely secret present for him. He does know that he usually gets a jumper and a pair of socks from me for Christmas, but I didn't manage to make him a jumper this year, so he did know he was getting a pair of socks. I did manage to get a couple of try-ons of the first sock. I made him close his eyes, promise not to look, and I tried it on him as I was knitting to make sure that I was getting the length right, and then I just knit the second sock to match. But yeah, this was a super duper fun knit. I really, really love knitting colourwork socks. They seem to just fly off my needles, and he really likes them as well. He likes how much warmer they are than his just standard vanilla socks because you have all of the floats in there as well. So I think I will be knitting him some more colourwork socks in the future. This was kind of a bit of a rogue present because I've never knit him colourwork socks before. I was a bit concerned that he wasn't going to like them because of the amount of floats in there. I wondered if he was going to get like his toes caught as he was putting them on. And there's none of that. He really, really likes them. So yeah, that is a really lovely thing to hear about a knitted gift that I was gifting, because I don't actually gift that many knitted items. I don't really like gift knit very much. I only gift knit for my husband and my daughter and occasionally my sister. But yeah, I don't tend to gift knit a lot for the rest of my family. Not because I don't think they're knit worthy, but just because they're not really that, like, they don't really kind of ask for knitted items or wear that many knitted items. So it just doesn't really seem like there's much point if they're not going to get any use out of it. I'd rather get them something that they would actually get some use out of. for Christmas and things. So yeah, that is my first finished object, and a bit of a tangent about gift knitting. So I cast these on September the 24th, and I cast them off on December the 15th. So they took a grand total of 83 days to knit, but I did take a big break between finishing the first sock and casting on the second, because I found knitting colourwork on short circumference needles, which is how I knit my colourwork, quite uncomfortable when I had my splint for my finger. So I waited until I had managed to get a little bit more strength and could knit them without having to wear my splint full time. So yeah, that was why they took a little bit longer to get off my needles. I think I missed out what yarns I used. So the yarns that I used were West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply, which is one of my favourite like commercial sock yarns. It's like a BFL nylon mix, and yeah, it's just a real workhorse sock yarn. It's not very expensive and you get loads of yardage. So the colours I used were Dusty Miller and Spruce. And then for the other two contrast colours, I used Drops Nord, which is like an alpaca wool polyamide mix. And I used Off-White and Rust in the Drops Nord to knit the geese. So yeah, really fun knit, absolutely love it. Definitely going to make him some more colourwork socks in the future. And the costs for this pattern, so I didn't buy any of these yarns specifically for this pattern. No, I did. I bought the Drops Nord specifically for knitting these socks, but the West Yorkshire Spinners I had just sitting in my stash. But for 2 balls of the West Yorkshire Spinners, it's £17.58. Then for 2 balls of Drops Nord, it's £5.40. And the pattern itself cost me £4.89. So the grand total for those socks was £27.87. But like I say, I used so little of the Dusty Miller because I only used it for the ribbing and a contrast stripe. And I still have a good amount of the Spruce left over. And then I have loads of the Off-White and the Rust left over. So I could definitely get at least one more pair of these socks, like knitted exactly the same colours and everything, out of these yarns. So yeah, the yarns go a long way, and the colourwork means that you don't use a lot of them in this pattern, so you definitely have lots of leftovers. So that is finished object number 1. Oh, tea is almost drinkable. Finished object number 2 is what I'm wearing. I was looking for it like I wasn't wearing it for a second, but yeah. Finished object number 2 is what I'm wearing. This is the Peatlands Sweater by CHERYL MOKHTARI. I knit up size 1, and I used River Knits Chimera in the, is it River Knits Chimera? Yeah, in the colour Rainforest, which is this beautiful like colour shifting hand dyed yarn. It's kind of like a dupe for, what's that stuff called? Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool. It kind of is in the same sort of category of like 2-ply, 2 different colours plied together at the same time, so it shifts throughout the skein. It's that kind of yarn. It's absolutely stunning. I really, really love it. I think I want to try a couple of the other colourways to make up other things in the future, because it was a really, really lovely yarn. It was very, very plump, very easy to knit with. And it feels lovely against the skin. Obviously it's like, I did the neckband in this, so this is right up against my skin. It feels lovely. I have no problems with it. It's not itchy at all. It's just a really, really lovely yarn. So yeah, that's what I used for the top half of the yoke and for the neckband. And then my contrast colour is Telling Yarn Steadfast DK in the colour Rosehip. And then the rest of my jumper, like the sleeves and the body, is Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the colour Pea Shoots, which I absolutely love. This is like probably one of my favourite types of green, like a real kind of like mossy pea green. It's absolutely lovely. So this was my first time using any of these yarns. I think they are all absolutely wonderful. I deliberately chose the Knitting for Merino, Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, because I have knit up a couple of things in Knitting for Olive Merino before, and they have all held up really, really well, and they don't pill or anything. If they do, it's very, very minimal. So I wanted to kind of see if the heavy merino holds up as well as the merino, because my husband is very hard wearing on his jumpers. Not the fact that he's like particularly rough with them or anything, but he wears them a lot. And I knit him a men's Moby sweater by Petite Knit a couple of years ago, and I used Drops, what's it called? The worsted weight alpaca wool blend, Nepal. I used Drops Nepal to knit that, and it just sheds everywhere. It pills really badly, it sheds everywhere, and I wanted to knit him another cable jumper in the future, and I wanted to find a yarn that was going to be relatively soft but also really hard wearing. And I kind of wanted to use this jumper as a bit of a test for the heavy merino, and I think that it probably will be something that I choose to use for one of his jumpers in the future, because this is holding up so well. I have been wearing this a lot. I finished this in the middle of December, I think. I finished it in Vlogmas, so if you watched any of those, you will have seen the day that I finished this. But yeah, I have been wearing it a lot. I've worn it pretty much like in rotation with one other garment, like one other knitted garment, throughout the entirety of December and January. I've just been sort of cycling between those two and not really changing my kind of jumper selection very much. They're just really warm and cozy, and that is just what I need at the moment. This jumper is so warm and snuggly, and I just absolutely love it. The colourwork yoke was really easy to follow. So there are separate charts for each motif. And then you sort of finish that chart, and then you will kind of follow the written pattern again to do the increase rounds, and then you'll go back into the chart. So there's no actual increases written in the charts. They're just in the written instructions, like between the charts, which is quite nice, to be honest. I mean, it does require a little bit of kind of like flicking between the pattern once you've finished one bit to go back to the written instructions, but it is quite nice to not have to sort of focus on increasing and colourwork at the same time. If you were, say, a new colourwork knitter, it's something that you could at least just do one at a time. But yeah, other than that, the pattern was really easy to follow. I did change the neckband. So in the pattern, it's written so that you would do a tubular cast on, and then you'll knit your neckband and then go straight into your colourwork afterwards. I don't like that on round yoke jumpers, because all of the weight of the jumper is then hanging on your neckband, and I find that it just really stretches out over time. The recommended yarns in this pattern are, I think, blown yarns, which might kind of mean that the neckband wouldn't get as stretched out, possibly because there wouldn't be as much weight on it. But my yarns were all like just standard like worsted spun wool yarns, and so they were much heavier, and I didn't want the neckband to just keep stretching and stretching and stretching, and my yoke depth to get even lower and lower and lower, and then me not really want to wear the jumper and then have to faff about trying to get elastic in there and everything. So to also fit my style a bit better, I cast on and knit my colourwork yoke, and then before I did the body and sleeves, I went back and I picked up the stitches and I knit a double folded 1x1 rib neckband, and then I just cast off with my picked up stitch row, so like to fold it down, and that's given me A, loads of stretch, and B, loads of structure in the neckband. So it didn't actually really stretch out too much at all in blocking, and it hasn't stretched out at all since I blocked it with all the wear that I've been getting out of it. So I think that that was the right decision to give myself a little bit more structure in my yoke. And it does mean that my yoke depth is kind of what's recommended in the pattern, not massive. And it fits underneath my jackets and my coats and everything still really, really well. So yeah, that worked out really nicely, and I'm really glad I did it, because I think I just get so much more wear out of this with a double folded neckband as well. So I did also add in the optional short rows that are included in this pattern. So if I stand up, you might actually be able to see what this looks like on. Oh, there's also a dog under my desk, so snoring is probably going to happen. So yeah, my bottom hem and front hem are level, and then I've got some raising at the back neck thanks to the short rows. And yeah, I absolutely love the fit of this. It's got a little bit more positive ease than a lot of other things that I've knit recently, but I think I'd prefer that. I've definitely been reaching for this a lot more than any of my other knits, and I've definitely been reaching for all of my like bigger jumpers recently, like ones that have much more positive ease like this one. So I think that's maybe something I need to think about in the future when I'm choosing my patterns and my sizes that I do like a little bit more positive ease. I think I've got somewhere close to like 25 centimeters of positive ease in this, and I just absolutely love it. It's not too big, it's not too tight. All of my like slightly baggier t-shirts and everything fit really well underneath it. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I did lengthen the body a little bit. I have a long torso, and I think I've just kind of come to the conclusion now that I really do need to make sure that I add in some extra body length, because I find that sometimes they do kind of jump back up a little bit after blocking, and I don't want to have to continuously like aggressively block my jumpers or not wear them because they're not quite long enough. I've also got a couple of new pairs of jeans recently which are a little bit lower rise, so I like the fact that I don't have like a weird gap between the top of my jeans and the bottom of my jumper. So yeah, I really love this thing. I've worn it so many times, and yeah, I'm going to continue to constantly reach for it over the next couple of months whilst it's still a little bit chilly. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend the pattern if you are looking for a colourwork yoke jumper. And yeah, it's just a really lovely garment, and I'm so glad that I chose to knit this up, and also in these colours as well, because I just love a bit of pink and green. So I cast this on November the 16th. I cast it off on December the 8th. So this took me a grand total of 23 days to knit. I didn't really use that much yarn either. I bought 9 balls of the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino for the body. I had 2 balls of the River Knits Chimera, and I had 1 of the Telling Yarn Steadfast, and I used next to nothing of the Steadfast. I've got loads of that left over. I think I've got like 70 grams or something left over. And the River Knits Chimera, because I used it for the double folded neckband, I used I think 1.5 skeins of that, and then I only used sort of well, I just cracked into the 8th ball of the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, so I definitely didn't need 9 balls. I've got most of that 8th one left over. I'm pretty sure if I had undone my swatch, I probably wouldn't have needed that 8th ball, but I couldn't be bothered to undo my swatch. I just cracked into the 8th ball. So yeah, I didn't use anywhere near as much yarn as I thought I would. I think I might have initially bought yarn to make size 2, but I ended up making size 1. And cost-wise, the pattern cost me £6.95. The River Knits Chimera for 2 skeins of that cost me £31. The Telling Yarn Steadfast was £28. The 8 balls of Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino that I used were £53.47. So the grand total for this jumper was £119.42. So it was quite pricey, definitely on the more expensive end of jumpers, especially for like my budget. But I do wear this a lot, and I'm sure it's going to be something that I reach for a lot in years to come as well. So yeah, I'm not too upset about spending that much money on it, and I do obviously have some yarn left over as well. So yeah, that is my second finished object. The next 2 are quite similar, but I will talk about them separately. So if you watched Vlogmas, then you will have seen at the end that I was casting on 2 striped garments, one for me and one for my daughter, and I was using the Stripe Overload Cardi pattern by SPEKTAKELSTRIK, and I was using the yarn that I had initially started using for my Great Gingham raglan by Jessie Made Designs, that I then decided I didn't like the fit of, and so I frogged it. I'd knit all of it up to the neckband. I've got some pictures of it here. Yeah, I'd knit all of it up to the neckband, and I was knitting the neckband and just tried it on and was like, no, not going to reach for this. Don't like the fit of it. So I'm going to scrap it and I'm going to knit something else. So yeah, I decided to knit myself the Stripe Overload cardigan, and the yarn that I was using for the Great Gingham was Yarbo 2TR Ull in the colours Cherry Pie and Apple Blossom, I think this one was called. So yeah, this is what I have left. Is there any more of it actually? There might be more of it. Oh, there's another. It's another one of the Apple Blossom. And yeah, another one of Cherry Pie. So yeah, this is what I have left from frogging the yoke, the body, one sleeve of the Great Gingham, and then also knitting the Stripe Overload cardigan. And then I also have this whole sleeve that I haven't frogged yet. So I've still got quite a lot of this to use up, but I held this with Fibre Space Cumulus in the colours Ruby Red and Sherbet to knit the stripe overload cardigan, because it's a like worsted weight cardigan and the Great Gingham was sport weight, I believe. So yeah, these were the yarns that I used for my version. And this just flew off my needles. It was really, really quick to knit up. The stripes are like 2-row stripes. So it's just really easy to say, oh, I'll just knit one more stripe. I'll just knit one more stripe. And yeah, like I say, it just flew off my needles. So I knit up size 1 and I used a 5.5mm needle for my main fabric and a 4.5 for all of my ribbing, including the collar. And this is what it looks like. I just absolutely love this thing. So this is the other garment that I've kind of just been rotating in my like knitwear wardrobe for the past sort of good few weeks since I finished it. I've either been wearing this Peatlands sweater or I've been wearing this cardigan, and they're just so lovely. I was worried that I was going to have the same reaction to the Fibre Space Cumulus as I do to mohair, but I just don't even feel myself wearing this. It's just so soft and squishy and warm and snuggly, and yeah, I just can't fault it. So I think it might be a like mohair thing, because the Cumulus is a silk suri mix. And yeah, I have no sensitivity to this whatsoever. I've been wearing this to go out. So I've been in and out of like really hot shops and things, and this still hasn't started to make me itch or anything like a mohair garment would. So yeah, I wonder if it is just a mohair sensitivity on my part. And maybe I have found something that I can use, like a fluffy yarn that I can use instead of mohair that my skin will tolerate. So yeah, I absolutely love this thing. So I pretty much knit it completely to pattern. I didn't get row gauge, I got stitch gauge. So it's like 16 stitches, I think, per 10 centimeters, but I ended up with 2 rows less in 10 centimeters than the pattern suggested. So mine was going to be a little bit longer in pretty much everything than the pattern recommended, which I didn't mind too much. My yoke isn't actually too much longer than the pattern recommended. I think maybe my increases kind of pulled my row gauge up a little bit, but my body did end up being a little bit longer, which is kind of what I wanted, because I do have, like I say, a long torso, and my buttonholes, I did keep them the same like rate apart as the pattern recommends. It recommends being a certain amount of rows apart. I did keep that the same as the pattern so that I could still use 8 buttons. And it hasn't really made too much of a difference, to be honest. Like, they are still a good amount apart. Like, they don't gape or anything. There's not too much space in between them. But it did mean that I got a little bit more length in my body, which is kind of what I wanted. So yeah, this is what it's looking like. There are short rows in here just after the collar. So you cast on with a tubular cast on and you knit your ribbed collar, and then you go into your short rows, and then you start doing all of the raglan increases. And yeah, you knit your button band as you go. So you come out of doing the collar and then you just continue doing some rib on the edge stitches of the body. And I really, really like that. I like that there was no finishing like touches that you had to do. Like, you didn't have to go back and pick up a button band. You didn't have to pick up any stitches for the collar. You just like cast on, hit the ground running, and just knit the garment. And then once you've bound off, you're done. So that was really, really lovely. It was kind of just such an easy, quick, meditative knit over the Christmas break. And yeah, I just absolutely love this thing. In true me style, I have not trimmed my ends. I have sewn them in, but not trimmed them. So every now and then I do have an end popping out of my sleeve that I will eventually trim. But yeah, I just cannot fault this. The pattern's pretty bare bones, basically. It just kind of gives you the basics of what you need. But to be honest, it is essentially just a striped raglan cardigan. So there's not too much hand holding necessary. The gauge was really easy to achieve. I think the recommended yarns are like Filcolana, Peruvian Highland Wool, and Tilia. So mine is probably a little bit more drapey because I used a sport weight instead of a worsted. with an alpaca. I've got a bit of alpaca on my nose now, with the brushed alpaca. So yeah, I've got a little bit more drape. I will put this on so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like on. I will stand up and try not to step on the dog once again. Yeah, so this is what it looks like on. Is my collar down? Yeah, sometimes I do find that the collar like flips up at the back, but I mean, that's just collared garments really, isn't it? So yeah, it's the same length as my Peatlands. It is far more drapey though. I'm not sure how that's gonna sort of affect it when I wear it undone, like in the spring, summer. I don't know if it's just going to be really floppy in the front, but I haven't really kind of worn it undone yet. I've not really felt the need to because it's been very, very chilly recently. But yeah, I love how much positive ease I've got in here. I think it will be a really lovely transitional piece going forward as well. I really like the long sleeves because at the moment it is pretty chilly. So I like the fact that they kind of cover my hands a little bit more. It's really lovely to knit in because sometimes I do get really chilly hands when I'm knitting, especially in the evening. But yeah, I just really, really like the fit of this. I do think that the neckband could maybe just be a little bit less wide, but I think that is my yarn choice. I don't think that that's a fault on the pattern or anything. And I think it's also just a personal preference thing on me. I do like a higher neck, but yeah, it doesn't really bother me too much. I think the colours are really lovely together. I think that the alpaca and wool, the colour match was really, really good. I did worry because I'd already got the Yarbo, obviously, so I was ordering the fibre spates online and I was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be the right colour. But thankfully, knitting friends to the rescue. My friend Tia was hopping it down to a yarn shop that is local to her. I don't really have any that are local to me, especially none that do a lot of like natural fibres. So yeah, she was going to her local yarn shop and they stock fibre space cumulus. So she took some photos in like some really good natural lighting for me to show me what the colours look like. So I was able to kind of make a bit more of an informed choice when I was ordering online. So yeah, that was really lovely. I'm so grateful for knitting friends. They are just the best people. So yeah, I can't fault this cardigan. I absolutely love it. It's so comfortable. It's so warm. And yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get lots of wear out of it going forwards. The buttons that I chose were Pigeon Wishes Cherry Bomb in the 15mm shirting. And I think they work really, really well. They blend in, but then they've got enough interest on their own that they sort of feel a bit like a fancy button. But I wanted something that was going to kind of not really stand out too much against the yarn. I really wanted to let the yarn shine in this cardigan. And yeah, I think they were a really, really good choice. And I think the 15mm fit really nicely in the buttonholes that I've got as well. So I've not had any of them like pop open as I've been wandering around or anything. So I think they're doing pretty well. So I cast this on December the 4th and I cast it off on December the 29th. So it took me a grand total of 26 days to knit. And cost-wise, the pattern cost me £4.78. The 4 skeins of Yarbo that I used cost £29.60. That was 2 skeins in each colour. And then I had 3 skeins in each colour of the Fibre Space Cumulus, and that came to £43.74. And then the buttons cost me £10, but they did come in a pack of 15. And I only used 8. So I did have a fair few of those left over as well. So the grand total of this cardigan cost-wise was £88.12. So not too shabby, to be honest. And I do think that I'm going to get a lot of wear out of this, way more wear than I would have got out of the Great Gingham raglan that I was initially intending to use one of the yarns for. Anyway, finished object number 4 is, like I say, very similar to the one that I am currently wearing now. And this is the Stripe Overload Polo Kid, but I kind of pattern hacked it to be a cardigan. So this is also by SPEKTAKELSTRIK, and yeah, this is my daughter's matching version of my cardigan. She saw me getting ready to make my version and she said that she wanted to match. She has said that we are currently in our matching era. She's a massive Taylor Swift fan, and so I was very much leaning into that. I'm very happy that she wants to match with me and wear the things that I make for her. And yeah, it's just a really lovely thing when your daughter comes up to you and says, oh, can I have one of those to match? I'm like, yes, you can. So yeah, I used Cascade 220 for hers because I knew that it was going to be a yarn that she is happy to wear next to skin and that she was going to get a lot of use out of. I've knit her a couple of hats, I think, and maybe another jumper out of Cascade 220 previously. So I knew that it wasn't going to cause her any like issues, like irritation or anything. So I ended up using the colours Ruby and Tutu. And they're a pretty good match for mine. The red is pretty much spot on. The pink on hers is definitely more blue toned, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. They match enough. And yeah, she's very happy with how this turned out. So I knit the age 6 and I used the same needle sizes that I used for my version. I used a 5.5mm needle for the main fabric and a 4.5 for all of the ribbing. And all I did to like change this from a polo neck jumper into the cardigan was that instead of joining at the front after you knit the collar, I just didn't join and I just carried on knitting flat, and I did the same button band on hers as I did for mine. I even did the buttons the same rate apart, but I did get gauge on her version, row gauge and stitch gauge. So her buttons are actually slightly closer together, but are still at the same rate apart, if that makes any sense. So it's holding together really nicely and she's got enough buttons to kind of like keep it together. The only time that hers aren't at the same rate is this last one in the ribbing, because I had to make the body longer on hers compared to what the pattern was recommending, because my daughter, like me, has got quite a long torso. So I think if I'd followed the pattern, then this button would have been in the ribbing. But like I say, it just wasn't going to give me enough length. So I just carried on knitting the ribbing, and then these two are just a little bit too close together. But you can't even really notice when she's wearing it because it is in the ribbing, and because these buttons do kind of blend into the fabric really nicely. So yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. I didn't want to make it any longer because then I felt like it was going to be drowning her. But I did want to make it long enough that she was going to at least get some wear out of it before she has yet another growth spurt. So yeah, I do kind of also wish that I had lengthened the sleeves a bit more, but I have quite a lot of yarn left over, so I could just sort of add in a little bit of extra length in a couple of months if I feel like I need to. The buttons, I used the 7 leftover buttons that I had from my version, and yeah, they work really well on hers as well. She's also not had any buttons like pop open as she's been wearing it. She has worn hers open a few times and it holds up really nicely, and she finds the buttons really easy to do and everything. So yeah, I think it's worked out really, really nicely. I did cast on an extra 2 stitches, one on either side of the front, just so that it would have a little bit of extra room. I wish I had added on, like maybe cast on 6 extra stitches so that there would be a little bit more stockinette in the front before you get to the button band. There's more than enough ease in here. It fits her really nicely. It's got quite a good amount of positive ease for her. But I do kind of wish that I had just added in, oh, that popped open. I just said that they don't pop open and then they did. Yeah, I wish I'd added in a little bit more stockinette just so it kind of looked a little bit more balanced. But yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm sure if I make it again, I can just add in that little modification. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. She really loves wearing it. She's worn it a lot. I always feel like it's a good judge of how much a kid actually likes the garment if they reach for it and put it on themselves. And she does do that. So yeah, I like the fact that we can match, but we can also wear them separately and everything. And yeah, I just really enjoy the fact that she actually asked for a knitted garment, and like pretty much like picked out most of the bits for it, and that it matches mine. So I cast hers on December the 8th and I cast it off on December the 31st. And so it was on my needles for a grand total of 24 days. And cost-wise, the pattern cost me £6.86. The 4 balls of Cascade 220 that I used cost £35.96. So the grand total for her cardigan was £42.82. I'm not counting the cost of the buttons in that because they were essentially just left over from mine and I didn't have to buy any extras. So yeah, £42.82. So it was quite pricey for a cardigan for her, but to be honest, I feel like knitwear in the shops for kids now is still pretty pricey. And she's gonna hopefully get a lot of wear out of this over the next, hopefully, couple of years. Depends how long she manages to fit into it and how many alterations I'm willing to do to it. So those are all of my like completely finished objects. I do have one kind of like honorary, mostly finished object to talk about. And that is my Advent project from 2024. So if you are new around here, you might not have seen this, but I started a, what is it called? Northeasterly blanket by SKEINANIGANS in my 2024 Alice in Wonderland Advent from Skein in the Stitch. And it's like a fingering weight garter stitch blanket. So this was the packaging from my Advent. It was a 24-day fade. I got the natural 4-ply base, which is 100% non-superwash merino. It's a fingering weight and you got 1,920 meters in this Advent. And I have finally finished knitting all of the yarn from the Advent, and it's taken a hot minute to do that. So this is what it now looks like. So I was doing 26 garter bumps, so 52 rows in each colour, and I was hoping to do eight strips with 12 colours in each strip for this blanket, and that was going to hopefully give me enough width to go over one person but give me a lot of length, and it didn't quite work out that way. I thought that I was using 5 grams each time. These were 20 gram minis, so I thought I was going to then have enough to do 4 runs of each colour, and I didn't. So I've only actually ended up with 7 strips, and that is fine. I'm really not fussed. So if I stand up, I can kind of show you what this looks like. It's still quite wide, like quite long, so it is a bit difficult to hold up. So, oh, is that all of it? Did I manage to get all of it in frame? No, because I've dropped half of it. So yeah, this is what it looks like. So the Advent started, oh, it's upside down. So the Advent started over here with this green, and then it worked through the, yeah, it started with this green, worked through various greens into blues and purples and pinks, and then we went through a lot of like pinks and kind of peach and neutrals and beige, and then back into like purples, and then down into like purpley reds. So that was the run of the Advent. And so then I got this one, which was 1 to 12, and then this one was 13 to 24, and then I went back and did 24 to 13 and 12 to 1, and then 1 to 12, 13 to 24, and then this last one was the last strip that I knitted. So I've ended up with very short sections, and I didn't quite manage to get a full strip out of the entire Advent as I was knitting up the last scraps of yarn. So I got to the greens, and then this is where I finished day 1. So I did end up like having to crack into another green that I had in stash, which thankfully was in the same base from the same dyer. So this is the yarn that I used to finish the blanket off. I'm not quite sure what this was called, but this is the natural 4-ply by Skein in the Stitch. I can't remember. I think it was something of the forest. And I've lost the yarn band, which is just, yeah, quite irritating. But yeah, I can't quite remember what this was. It might be Enchantments of the Forest or something. That sounds right, like kind of familiar. But yeah, I had this green in stash, so I finished off that last strip with this. I don't think it looks too kind of bad. But I do have plans with this blanket to continue adding to it over the course of 2026. So this is not finished. It's not the last time that we're going to see this blanket. So because I didn't quite get the width that I wanted, I have decided to sign up for Jess from Skein the Stitches 2026 Yarn Club, and it's based on Jane Austen novels. So you get, I think it's 1200 gram skeins, and they're all based on various different novels by Jane Austen. And because I have chosen the same base and the same dyer, I thought that the kind of dyeing style and the fact that all of the yarns are going to be kind of the same texture and everything and the same weights, that was going to tie the blanket together. A lot of Jess's colours are these like beautiful kind of pastels. She's just got a really lovely dyeing style. So I'm going to be using this section as the centre of the blanket. And then when my club yarns arrive, I'm going to be adding a strip on each side. So 1 is going to be on this side, and then 2 is going to be on this side, 3, 4, and so on. And so that's going to give me a lot more width, but I'm not going to really put too much pressure on myself to make sure that this is finished in 2026, because these strips take a long time to knit. There is a lot of knitting involved. And I just want to have this as a nice like casual project that I can pick up and put down whenever I want to. It's not a particularly portable project because it is quite heavy. So yeah, it's going to be one of those ones that sits beside the side of the sofa, and maybe I'll take it on holiday with us and have it as like an evening knit when we're on holiday or something. But yeah, it's just going to be something that I'm going to be working on in the background. I would like to have it as something that I maybe work on like Sundays. But I'm not going to, like I say, put too much pressure on myself to knit on this. I don't want it to feel like a chore. Like say, oh, it's Sunday, I'm going to have to knit on this. I can't knit on anything else. So yeah, that is my general plan for this blanket. I do have a lot of ends that I need to sew in. So that might need to be something that I try and sit down and do fairly soon. But yeah, I wanted to just mention this now that it kind of feels like it's hit a bit of a milestone point in the fact that I finally finished knitting the Advent. The packaging can stop sitting there staring at me going, oh, you haven't knit me yet. So yeah, I haven't got stats for this. I'm not going to keep running any stats on this because it's just going to continuously be something in the background that I'm working on. And yeah, I'm just going to have it as a like comfort knit, not a how long has this really taken me knit. It'll be easy to work it out when I do finish it though, because I started it on like the 1st of December 2024, so it's quite an easy date to remember. So yeah, that is my northeasterly blanket. Oh, I'm using a 3mm needle and I'm knitting up the fingering weight version of this. So yeah, that is my progress on that, and that is all of my finished objects and also my almost finished objects. So now we can get into some proper whips. How long have I been waffling on for as well? I feel like I've been talking your ears off for hours at this point. Long enough that my tea has almost gone cold. So my first whip that I have to talk about is my Advent, one of my Advent projects from 2025. So these are my Advent socks that I started. I got the 2025 self-striping Advent skein from Spin and Blether. So you get 2 50-gram skeins of self-striping sock yarn to knit 1 sock out of each. They both start at the same point and the stripes are like symmetrical on either side. So yeah, I also got the, where have I put it? I did have it on the desk somewhere, and then I put a load of knitting down. Here we are. I did also get the undyed yarn to go with it to knit my heels, cuffs and toes in. And I decided to knit my socks toe up, which is not my preferred method of knitting socks. I essentially decided to go toe up so that I could decide how long I wanted to make the leg of them later on. And I'm kind of at that point on one of these socks. So I was knitting these a little bit during Vlogmas. I kind of fell off the wagon of knitting a stripe a day or a couple of stripes a day fairly quickly, but I have made some progress. So I'm essentially just doing a vanilla sock, 64 stitches. I've done a wedge toe and then just knit the foot to the length that I needed for my size 6 feet. And then I've done a short row heel. I used the short row heel pattern from the Charming Colourwork Socks book by Stone Knits. It's like my go-to short row heel. I find that it fits my foot really well. I don't get any holes when I'm knitting it. And I think it looks really nice as well. I don't really like an afterthought heel, so this is like my go-to heel when I need to add in a heel to like a colourwork sock or a self-striping sock or whatever. So yeah, that's what they are looking like at the moment. And then this is just sock 1, and I've just done a bit of the leg. I've done 3 stripes, and I was knitting these on short circumference 9-inch circulars for the foot, and then I changed to magic loop to do the heel, and then I thought, actually, you know what, I'm going to keep these on magic loop to knit the leg so that they're a little bit easier to try on, because I'm not sure how long I want to make these yet. I don't know if I want to do maybe some increases and make them a lot longer so that I can kind of have them as like slouchy socks. I'm just not sure yet. So I'm just continuously knitting and trying them on as I go. And then I'm going to kind of make a decision like as I go as well. So yeah, I will get these finished at some point. This is where I am on sock 1, and then sock 2, I'm at the point where I need to add in the heel. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of yarn left over. I'm pretty sure that I'm probably not going to knit the whole skein into these socks. I might end up making a like matching pair for my daughter or something, or maybe I might make a pair of like shorter socks or something. I'm not sure, with this leftover yarn. But yeah, I'm just knitting on these as I go. I definitely would pick these up more if I wasn't also knitting another stockinette project at the moment. So I'm just keeping these as like travel knitting and like as and when knitting. They're hopefully going to get a little bit more work on them now that we are back to like ballet and swimming with my daughter. I'll be taking these with me. So yeah, I'm just going to continue working up the leg now, and then I'll go back to sock 2 once I've worked out how long I want to make sock 1, and I'll knit the leg on that one. I was knitting them both at the same time, but because I only have one like needle that's long enough to do magic loop in a 2.25mm, I'm not going to knit them both at the same time because I don't really like knitting socks 2 at a time on the same needle. I don't find it very portable, and I like to have my socks as a portable project. So I cast those on December the 1st, and they have currently been on my needles for 42 days, and probably going to be hanging about for a little bit longer. So yeah, that was whip number 1. And whip number 2 is living in this lovely project bag, which I made. So I suppose this is kind of a finished object. This is the Quilted Bucket bag by Rosie Caldwell. This is the large version. And this is kind of what I spent a lot of time doing last week. I decided I needed a project bag because I wanted to try and keep my projects a little bit more organized this year. You might have noticed that what was my yarn storage is now looking a little bit bare. And that's because I'm also in the middle of sorting out this room so that it's just a little bit more organized. You might remember that there's a cupboard of doom over there that was basically just holding all of our junk. Well, over the weekend, me and my husband took everything out of the cupboard, went through all of it, and now my yarn stash is going to be living in there with my fabric stash and all of his hobby bits from where he wants to make keyboards and do various other bits. So we've each got a couple of shelves to keep all of our stuff on, and I need to get some tubs and things to hold my yarn in. So yeah, that is now coming down. But what I wanted to do was make sure that I could have all of my yarn for a project in one project bag so that I didn't have to keep running up and down the stairs to get more balls of yarn, and I could have everything for the project in one place, and then it's all there when I need it. And I thought that this project bag was going to be absolutely perfect for it because it has got loads of space in here. So this is the largest size, and this is currently holding my whip and 6 skeins of yarn. And it's not even halfway full with all of that in there. And this is a pretty hefty whip. I'll show you in a minute. And then it's also got pockets all the way around, and it's got a drawstring around the top that you can pull closed, but I like to have it just folded over so that I can just pick my whip up and put it down, and it's got somewhere for my yarn to like live. So I've just been knitting out of this, so my yarn is also not rolling around the floor or anything. So yeah, I'm very much enjoying having these, and I think I want to make some more as well. So if you'd like to see a vlog of me making some quilted project bags, then please do let me know down in the comments. But yeah, I used some leftover corduroy from a bag that I made for myself earlier last year, and then I have loads of this, what is it? Cotton, it's 100% cotton hanging about in my stash. So I used that for the lining and all of the pockets and everything. And I even took the time to bias bind all of my seams, which I can't find now. Oh, here. Yeah, I actually took the time to bias bind my seams, which is not something that I often do. I get very frustrated with bias binding. It's not my favourite thing. So yeah, very happy with my project bag. So yeah, that is that. And living in this project bag is another modified colour tip tee by Emily Curtis. So if you are unfamiliar, I knit these for my husband. So the colour tip tee is a fingering weight t-shirt pattern with a little pocket, by Emily Curtis, and it's got a set-in sleeve and everything. And I basically butcher that pattern to make a fingering weight jumper for my husband. So that pattern is written for women's sizing, and I basically just pick and choose numbers from it and turn it into a men's jumper. So I'm not really sure if it even is the colour tip tee anymore. So yeah, it's basically just a fingering weight set-in sleeve, slightly oversized jumper for my husband. And so this is the third one of these that I'm knitting. I've knit him a light grey one with blue around the collar, sleeves and hem. And then I knit him a darker grey one with green. And this is a light grey one with red. So I have changed the yarn that I'm using this time. I usually use Sanna's Garn Tin Pig Int, and this time I'm using up some Filcolana Panilla that I've had hanging around in my stash for absolute ages. So like taking everything off of these shelves and like putting it into the cupboard and everything has definitely kind of made me want to go through my stash a little bit more. I've ordered some like big tubs to put all of my yarn in so that I can kind of segregate it into different weights and everything, and also just keep it a little bit better protected. So I'm going to be going through all of my stash again to kind of organize it a little bit more and everything. If you'd like to see me do that, do let me know, because it would be lovely to kind of have some company doing it, because it does feel a little bit soul destroying going through all of these tiny bits of yarn that I for some reason hung on to. But yeah, going through all of that kind of to take it off there and put it in the cupboard definitely made me sort of think about what yarns I've been hanging on to for a lot longer than I maybe should have, and should maybe just get around to knitting them. And this was kind of one of them. So the Panilla is technically a sport weight yarn, but I am knitting it up as like a fingering weight gauge because it's quite thin. I'd say that it's a very kind of similar weight to Tin Pig Int. And so it's giving me the same gauge on the same needle size as I knit this up for my husband before in Tin Pig Int. So I think this might be a little bit thicker, but it's not going to be too thick. He's still going to be able to get a lot of wear out of it as a like lightweight jumper. And he wears these all the time, which is why I keep knitting them, because this thing feels like it's taking me forever. So I started with the back panel and knit the short rows. I did size 7 for the shoulders to get the shoulder width that I needed. And then I have done the front panel as well. I do the neckband and the armpit for size 5 and pick up the amount of stitches for size 7 to again get the shoulder width that I need. And then I have also done quite a bit on the body. So I think I'm on my 3rd or maybe 4th ball of the main colour. So it does go a long way. It just feels like it's taking forever because I'm knitting a men's jumper on 3.25mm needles at like a 24 stitch gauge. So yeah, it feels like it's taking absolutely forever, but I know that he gets so much wear out of these, so it just feels so worth it. I've done the short rows for the sleeve cap. I'm literally on the first round of knitting in the round, so I'm going to be doing some decreases and just working on this sleeve this week and hopefully get this done fairly quickly for him. I did pick up a knit the neckband. I changed my usual formula this time. I did a little purl row before I started the ribbing, and I've also, instead of just doing a couple of rounds in the contrast colour, I've just done the whole of the inside of the ribbing in the contrast colour because I couldn't be bothered to change colours again. And I thought the little purl row kind of gives it a little bit more interest. And I'll do that before I start the ribbing on the sleeves and the body as well, so it all kind of matches up. So yeah, that is my husband's colour tip tee number 3. Yeah, this is usually what I knit him up for Christmas, but obviously didn't get around to doing that this year. But yeah, I'm just going to be continuing working down this sleeve. I do feel like this is taking, like I say, I do feel like this is taking forever, but I do really like the fact that I've kind of moved to being a bit more of like a monogamous knitter where it comes to garments. So since the old finger injury, I've tried to only really have one garment on the needles at like one time. I did knit my daughter's and my stripe overload cardigans at the same time, but because it was kind of like knitting the same pattern, I kind of like knit to one point on one and then then like swapped to the other one, a bit like with socks. But I'm really enjoying having like just one project, like one big project on the needles that I can kind of solely focus on and make sure it's like getting my full attention and that I'm actually finishing things, because I feel like towards the end of when I was knitting lots of different things at the same time, I was getting frustrated with how long things were staying on my needles for because I wanted to have them as finished objects. But in reality, they were just taking a lot longer because I wasn't giving them the time that they needed and I was knitting multiple things at the same time. And I think I just enjoy having like one thing on the needles at a time at the moment. So yeah, I'm enjoying monogamous knitting. I do worry that that's maybe not that interesting for people to watch in a podcast setting. So yeah, I am still having a like small project and a big project, but hopefully that still remains somewhat interesting for you guys. I don't know. I just don't feel like casting on all the things at the moment, but that's not to say that that might change in the future. So yeah, I cast this on December the 31st, and so it has currently been on my needles for 14 days. So yeah, it's not actually that little progress for like 2 weeks of knitting on a fingering weight garment, to be honest. I should stop beating myself up about how long things take. Things take time. So yeah, that is everything that I have to talk about today. I feel like this episode has probably gone on for an absolute age, so thank you so much if you have stuck with me through all of my waffling. Like always, I would love to know what you guys are knitting, if you've cast on something new for the new year, or if you've like bought a load of whips through from 2025. I would love to know. If you have liked this video, please do feel free to give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you are new here and you've enjoyed listening to me waffle on about my knitting, then please do subscribe. It'd be lovely to have you here. But yeah, I am going to go and tidy up all of the mess that I have left on my desk now, and I will catch up with you all in a couple of weeks with some more knitting. Happy making!